Floyd Mayweather says that Shakur Stevenson is the more skilled fighter between Shakur and Gervonta Davis, but he also mentioned that Gervonta Davis is the bigger puncher when it comes to the 135-pound weight division. And I gotta agree with that. I think that it's fair to say that Tank is the biggest puncher, but the perspective that I have is that being the biggest puncher makes up for that lack of skill. And I honestly, I'm not sure I agree that Shakur is the more talented and skillful fighter. I think Tank might just be as skilled. He also has that level of power, and I think possessing power and being able to set traps the way that Tank does, I think that's a very overlooked skill just because he's a big puncher. And I understand that being a puncher and being really skillful can be two different things, and maybe Shakur is very much more skillful in a different way, maybe when it comes to the defense, measuring the distance, the stuff they always talk about when it comes to Shakur. He's very conservative, he's very, intelligent when it comes to that hit and not get hit mentality, but, there's no doubt that Tank sells a lot of tickets because he produces those outcomes that we want to see. Ultimately, the fans, everybody wants to see a knockout, and every time Gervonta Davis gets in the ring, he delivers a knockout, with the exception of Isaac Cruz. But I would argue that without an injured hand, he goes into that fight and stops Isaac Cruz in a rematch. In my opinion, that might be a hot take, but I do think that Tank beats Isaac Cruz by stoppage if they were to fight again. I think that fight is also a very, very in play when it comes to Tank going to 140, but it's interesting because I wasn't hearing Floyd Mayweather, give these opinions until we heard about this Floyd Mayweather and Gervonta Davis beef. Floyd was saying that he was nothing but respectful to Gervonta Davis, and now it's kind of all falling apart because apparently Floyd feels like every time Gervonta does an interview, he's taking a shot at Floyd. But when I hear about it, in person, and when I see Tank doing interviews online, he's always saying stuff like, no, I can't say that about Floyd. He's still grateful, but I guess, he's more so talking about when Tank gets on social media, he says stuff about Floyd Mayweather and talks about how he owes people in Dubai money, and that's why he's stuck out there. And, I don't know to what extent that's true. I know nothing about that situation. I just see what's on social media like the rest of you guys. But still, to see, Floyd Mayweather and Gervonta Davis's relationship has kind of turned sour, and now we're seeing Floyd Mayweather kind of begin to choose sides. First, we saw Shakur Stevenson post that video addressing Floyd Mayweather's beef with Tank Davis, and basically said to Tank in that video, your beef isn't with Floyd Mayweather, let's make a big fight happen. And Floyd then posted a photo on his Instagram of Shakur Stevenson versus Gervonta Davis as kind of like a fight poster, obviously not officially, but Floyd posted it and said this is the fight that should be happening, not Frank Martin. And he's kind of saying that, why are you fighting Shakur at 35? Why are you fighting a guy like Frank Martin? And there's been a lot of that narrative that Gervonta Davis is picking and choosing his fights, and he's cherry picking and fighting guys that he knows he's going to look good against. And I understand that Frank Martin's a great 135er as well, but I do think that Tank has to start getting those big fights. In that aspect, I agree, but to say that he's cherry picking, I can't say that, because any pro is difficult to beat. That's what a lot of casual fans don't understand. Like, there are a lot of good people in the sport of boxing, a lot of great fighters that aren't even big names because they don't have that marketing strategy that maybe a guy like Ryan Garcia or a guy like Tank has, and they don't have the that same level of that ability to promote themselves. But that goes hand in hand with the marketing. But there are a lot of good pros out there, and I do think that Frank Martin's a credible opponent for Tank, especially with the 135-pound weight class. I think going to 140, there's a lot of big fights for Tank, but right now at 35, aside from Frank Martin, let's assume that Tank gets past Frank Martin and stops him like I expect him to, and like a lot of people expect him to. If he gets past Frank Martin, I would love to see Shakur or Lomachenko for Tank in his next fight, because if it's not for Tank, if it's not Lomachenko, if it's not Shakur Stevenson, they're I can't really think of an opponent that they would really give him credit for beating. But if he fights a guy like Lomachenko, if he fights a guy like Shakur Stevenson, I think that people would definitely give credit to Tank for beating those guys, because those guys are the top at the top of the mountain when it comes to the 135-pound weight class. So I'm excited to see Frank Martin and Gervonta Davis get that fight going. You know, we're about 2-ish weeks away from that fight, so it really is creeping up. Time's flying by, and obviously we also get that David Benavidez fight. But yeah, Floyd Mayweather obviously picking sides now. You know, he was talking about his relationship with Gervonta Davis. He almost got kind of emotional about it and kind of spoke how all he's ever tried to do is be supportive and speak highly of Tank. And he tried to guide him in the right path to become world champion, and he accomplished that. But at the same time, you know, he's seeing stuff on social media, seeing Tank being kind of disrespectful to Floyd, even though in my eyes, when I see a lot of interviews, and trust me, I watch a lot of Tank interviews, I watch a lot of boxing interviews, period. Seeing Tank, he doesn't really seem very disrespectful when it comes to the interviews. It more so comes on social media, and everybody tweets. Everybody has those moments on social media when they post something that maybe they shouldn't have, maybe that could cause trouble the next day. They don't feel that same way, you know, literally when they wake up the next morning. So it's a tough situation with social media. This wasn't an issue back in the day, but to see Floyd and Tank kind of having this rough patch in their relationship, it's pretty unfortunate. But it is also interesting to see Floyd say that Shakur is the more skilled fighter, and I just don't know. I think that the fact that Gervonta Davis carries power, that makes him more skillful, because then he's able to set up certain things. He gets more respect in that ring. That's something that a lot of people don't take into account. You know, you're as good as Shakur Stevenson is. We saw guys like Edwin De Los Santos. We saw guys like Oscar Valdez. These guys like come forward, even though, you know, obviously Shakur is a very difficult fighter to fight. It's very frustrating. You know, he breaks you mentally. If you don't have that power to keep you off, who's to say that, you know, Tank, of all people, isn't going to be able to land a big shot on a guy like Shakur? And that's just the facts of it. It's not like, you know, Shakur has no power. That's not the case. It's his style. His style makes it hard for him to, you know, really set his feet and land big shots with power. That's just his style. He does the shoulder roll, his own little version of it, but the way he fights is very in and out. It's very hit and not get hit. So with Shakur's particular style, he doesn't have the power, you know, in these fights. But it's not like he can't crack. It's just he'd have to, you know, pick a perfect shot to really plant his feet, and in that time, he can't afford to make a mistake at the same time. So, you know, Shakur, as good as he is, he's a great boxer, but the element of power changes everything. And we saw that with Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, and you guys can say whatever you want, but I still saw the fight that I saw, that power really being the difference. Who's the better boxer? If we're just picking a boxing match and knockouts aren't a thing, I'm picking Devin all day long. But because it's not only a boxing match, it's a fight, and knockouts are very much in play. That's why Ryan Garcia won the fight, because, you know, the power makes such a big difference. You know, maybe Ryan Garcia lost rounds 2 to 5, but he did so much damage within those rounds where he was able to either drop or really hurt Devin Haney with that left hook, you know, no matter what. So power is really significant in this sport. That just goes to show how significant it is. And as good as Shakur is he going to be able to go 12 rounds with a guy like Tank? It's not just the fact that Tank's a big puncher. He can box too. That's what makes it very dangerous for Shakur. Even Shakur has said it. That's his most difficult fight, and we all know it. Is Shakur Tank's most difficult fight? I'm not sure. I still think guys like Teofimo Lopez could pose a lot of problems for Tank, but Shakur is definitely up there. I would argue that Lomachenko may be an even bigger threat to Tank than Shakur is. It's Shakur and Lomachenko are Tank's toughest tests at 135, and if he doesn't fight guys like that, then I really don't think that there's any credibility from, you know, all these casual fans. They're not going to give him the respect he deserves. If you notice, Tank only fights guys that really call him out. You know, he didn't choose to fight Isaac Cruz. He didn't choose to fight Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia called him out, and then he had to accept it because it got so big to the point where people were, you know, seeing Tank on the street and saying, when are you going to fight Ryan? So for Shakur, I think that Shakur is going to have to eventually call out Tank straight up. I know he's been saying his name because obviously Tank's the most popular name in the sport of boxing, or at least he's, you know, top 2, top 3. But, you know, I think that fight is so big to not happen. I think that Shakur is eventually going to have a official call out, go to one of Tank's fights and step in the ring after his win against Frank Martin, and maybe just call him out and say, let's make it happen. And I think that could be the moment where we get the Shakur, Stevenson, and Tank fight. If you want to throw Lomachenko in there with Tank, that's a good fight too, but it's got to be Shakur or Lomachenko if you're Tank Davis, because if not, who's really going to give you respect? I don't think anybody will. And that's not the way it should be. I think beating a pro is beating a pro, but we're waiting on that big win from Tank, and I think that's either Loma or Shakur. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about Floyd Mayweather saying that Shakur Stevenson is more skilled than Tank, but Tank's the bigger puncher. I think that's common knowledge, but you know, we're just hearing this information come from Floyd for the first time. He's never really said anything like that, so it is interesting. Definitely has to do with the relationship between him and Tank. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace.
That's going to do it for another NASFight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy, Matt Nabong, with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.